Hello. In our village, people do not grow old. You will not find any elders here, except perhaps in old fairy tales, if anyone still remembers how to tell them. Every Friday, we return from the forest looking younger, and every Friday, we forget whom we loved, whom we quarreled with, even our mother's names. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments which city you are watching from and what time it is there. It is always interesting to see who has joined us. Now, get comfortable. We are about to begin. You do not remember exactly when you first heard the warning. Perhaps it was told to you in the haphazard hush of market day, while the muddy road turned beneath you and the clamor of carts drowned out the voices of the old women. Or perhaps the words were stitched into the dull monotony of evenings, around smoky fires, as everyone pretended not to watch the forest beyond the fields. In this village, rumors are as common as turnips, and even less nourishing. Still, you remember the gist of it. On Fridays, never step into the forest. Never let your curiosity, your boredom, or your misplaced sense of adventure drag you past the tangle of brambles and the century of moss grown birches. If you do, something peculiar will happen. The adults say you will return looking younger, sprightlier, as if a year or two has been shaved off by some unseen hand. But here comes the part that everyone seems to enjoy repeating with theatrical grimness. You will forget. Not everything at once, perhaps, but enough that it matters. Your mother's lullabies, the face of your childhood friend, even the recipe for barley soup, gone piece by piece, washed away like words in the rain. The stories do not end there. They multiply in the retelling, spawning details no one can verify. A maiden who reappeared with golden hair and empty eyes. An old man who returned as a boy, bewildered, clutching a handful of dead leaves. A baker who forgot the taste of bread. You listen, of course, as everyone must, because there is precious little to do in this remote and entirely ordinary corner of the world. But you tell yourself you are not so foolish as to believe in fairy tales. Even as the words collect in the back of your mind, dust settling on an unused shelf, it is, you admit, an odd village. The forest broods at the edge of your existence, both boundary and invitation. Its trees are not so tall, but they seem to lean inward, holding whispered conversations in the wind. In summer, children dare each other to run to the first fallen log, to pluck a sprig of fern, to return triumphant and unscathed. In winter, the forest looks no different, just more bare, more honest about its intentions. Still, you do not often venture close. Your own home, like all the others, is built with its back turned to the woods, the front door always facing the fields. You live, as everyone here does, by the rules of necessity and tradition. Wake before dawn, tend the goats, turn the soil, repair the roof, repeat. It is not a thrilling existence. In fact, if you were to compose a letter to a distant cousin in a city, you would be hard pressed to fill more than a page without resorting to weather or complaint. There are, of course, those who claim to find satisfaction in the slow rhythm of village life. You are not one of them. And so, when Friday arrives, gray, damp, no more significant than any other day, you feel the usual combination of relief, because it means the week is almost done, and annoyance, because nothing ever really changes. The villagers keep themselves busier than usual on Fridays, as if activity itself can keep the woods at bay. Doors are barred just a little earlier. Children are called inside with sharper voices. Bread is baked in double batches, and there is always at least one old crone who mutters something about the forest under her breath. You watch all this with a kind of detached amusement. Surely, you think, the true danger of Friday is simply dying of boredom before sundown. You make a mental note to count the new cracks in the tavern wall, just for a change of pace. Yet, even as you roll your eyes at superstition, you catch yourself glancing at the trees. They are ordinary trees, you remind yourself. Nothing more. There are others who remember differently. The oldest villagers, those with faces like dried apples and hands bent by time, do not speak of their own Fridays. They speak only of others, a neighbor's cousin, a friend's lost uncle. If you ask it too many questions, you receive only shrugs and thin lipped smiles. But if you linger long enough by the well or the market square, sometimes you overhear things. He came back with baby skin, but could not name his wife. She wept for her mother, but could not recall her mother's name. The twins. They both forgot they were twins, you know. Of course, you are not the only one who finds these stories lacking in evidence. There are skeptics, and there are those who secretly wish for a little magic to break the tedium. You belong to both groups, which is a very safe place to be. It allows you to scoff at the credulous and daydream when no one is watching. As the sun slips down and Friday settles itself over the village, you make your rounds, feed the chickens, count the goats, scrape the mud from your boots. The air smells of damp straw and the faint tang of smoke. You listen to the forest just for a moment. It is quiet, too quiet perhaps, but only because you are listening. You recall dimly that last Friday was the same, and the Friday before that. Life here is as repetitive as the tolling of the chapel bell, always a little duller with each echo. The stories, you suppose, are simply another way to pass the time. No one ever sees anyone go into the forest. Not really. And no one ever admits to returning. Still, you cannot help but wonder if you stepped into the trees, would anything change? Or would you, like everyone else, simply forget what you were looking for in the first place? But that, you tell yourself, is a question for someone else. For now, you have chores to finish and a bed that promises sleep without dreams. At the very edge of your hearing, the forest stirs. It begins the way most mistakes do, with boredom, the kind that creeps into your bones like autumn damp. Friday, again. There is only so much sweeping, milking, mending, and gossiping a person can endure before the walls of a thatched cottage feel like the inside of a grave. Perhaps that is why, despite the wisdom of centuries and the stern warnings that swirl around the well, you find yourself at the edge of the forest with the sun still crawling its way up the sky. You tell yourself it is simply a walk, nothing more, a diversion, an antidote to monotony. After all, the path is familiar. Your boots know the way as well as you do. The only difference today is that it happens to be Friday. Of course, you remember the warnings, those worn grooves in the village's collective memory. Never enter the woods on this day. But you are hardly the first person to dismiss old wives' tales. Besides, you are only going as far as the bend in the path, perhaps to the place where the stream slips out of the trees, gurgling to itself about secrets it has no intention of sharing. The air beneath the canopy is different. Cooler, yes, but also charged with a peculiar hush. Leaves, fat with the promise of summer, overlap above you, weaving a green quilt that filters the light into dappled coins. Moss climbs the trunks like spilled velvet. You step lightly, careful not to snap a twig or disturb the delicate kingdoms of fungus that thrive in shadow. You are not afraid. Not at first, but the deeper you go, the more you sense the strangeness of the place. The ordinary sounds of the village, the bark of a dog, the creak of a cartwheel, the lowing of cattle, vanish, replaced by a silence that feels not empty, but full, as if the forest is holding its breath, watching you with eyes you cannot see. You pause at the stream, kneeling to dip your fingers in the water. It is colder than you expect. For a moment, you close your eyes, listening to the burble and rustle all around. You feel the weight of days slip from your shoulders. For a heartbeat, you are just another creature in the woods, with no past and no obligations. You do not linger long. You tell yourself you are simply cautious, not superstitious. Besides, the day is still young, and you have chores to return to. On your way back, you notice nothing out of the ordinary, except perhaps the peculiar way your shadow seems to lag behind, as if reluctant to leave. Back in the village, everything looks precisely as it did before. The same sagging fences, the same sagging faces, the same rhythm of work and complaint. Yet, as you walk, you catch an odd look from the old woman who tends the geese. She frowns, wipes her hands on her apron, and mutters a greeting that you are certain you have heard 1,000 times before. But today, for some reason, her name slips through your mind like water through fingers. You shrug it off. After all, names come and go, especially in a place where everyone seems related by blood or boredom. But then it happens again. A neighbor waves from across the square, and you cannot recall whether you owe him eggs or a favor. The sensation is subtle, not panic, but a kind of dislocation, as if you have woken from a long nap and are not quite sure where you are. It is only when you pass the village well and catch your reflection in the water that you feel the first true jolt. The face staring back is undeniably yours. Same sharp chin, same nose that never quite healed. Straight after that time, you fell from the hayloft. But there is something different. The skin is clearer, the eyes a touch brighter, as if you have been washed clean by more than just the morning dew. You lean closer, squinting. Is it just your imagination, a trick of the light? Or is it the forest's joke, subtle and cruel, played only on those too clever to believe in old stories. For the rest of the day, you catch yourself glancing at every shiny surface, the bucket, the window glass, even the edge of your spoon. Each time, the effect is the same, a fleeting sense of newness, a vitality you have not felt since you were a child. It is not a transformation so dramatic that anyone else would remark upon it, but you feel it, humming beneath your skin. When evening comes, you expect someone, anyone, to mention it. Perhaps the miller, whose eyes miss nothing, or the priest, who seems to suspect everyone of harboring secret sins. But the village is as unobservant as ever, consumed by the dull necessity of keeping things the way they have always been. You eat your supper in silence, turning the events of the day over and over in your mind like stones in a riverbed. You try to remember what you have forgotten, but you cannot quite grasp it. A recipe, perhaps, or a story you once loved. It slips away before you can name it, leaving only a faint ache, like the echo of a bell that has just stopped ringing. That night, you lie awake and listen to the wind in the eaves. You think about the forest, how ordinary it looked, how extraordinary it felt. You promise yourself you will not go back. There is nothing to fear, after all. And yet, in the hollow behind your ribs, a seed of curiosity begins to grow, fed by the very thing you are trying to forget. In the morning, you wake with the unmistakable sense that something important has happened, though you cannot say what. The day unfolds as all days do. Bread is baked, animals are fed, the villagers gossip with the lazy persistence of a creek in drought. You find yourself repeating tasks you cannot recall starting. At noon, you catch yourself humming a song you do not recognize, the melody both familiar and utterly foreign. You pass the old woman and realize, with a jolt, that you still do not know her name. She seems not to notice, or perhaps she has forgotten yours as well. Later, while mending a fence, a child runs by and calls out to you. You wave, only half sure of the child's name, but confident that it does not matter. The world continues, the village endures, and the forest waits, its secrets safe for another week. When Friday comes again, you will remember even less. But for now, you are content to let the days blur into one another, secure in the knowledge that nothing ever truly changes in this place, except perhaps you. It is amazing, in a dreary sort of way, how much the people of your village enjoy discussing things they claim to hate. If a tragedy befalls someone, it is dissected and described by the fire until every morsel of detail has been gnawed to the bone and spat out. If a fortune turns, a marriage blooms, a cow gives birth to twins, the news spreads through the lanes as surely as the smoke rises from chimneys. But nothing draws more attention than the subtle, barely perceptible changes that no one is quite willing to admit seeing. You wake on Saturday morning, as you always do, and the sun slants through your shutters in that particular apologetic way it has after a night of rain. You go to the well, bucket in hand, and find yourself standing beside the same old woman as yesterday, the one whose name you still cannot recall, though you are certain you once could. She glances at you from the corner of her eye, says nothing, but the silence between you is thick with possibility. Later, as you walk through the village square, you catch the edge of a conversation between the baker and the blacksmith's wife. Their voices are low, intended for each other, but perfectly positioned for you to overhear. "It is the oddest thing," says the baker. "Did you see the way he looked yesterday? Rosy as a child he was, almost glowing, if you can believe it." The blacksmith's wife snorts. "He probably found a stash of honey wine and drank himself back to youth. That is the only magic in this village." You could step forward, correct her, but you do not. Part of you wants to hear more, to see how your life sounds in the mouths of others. Instead, you keep walking, feeling their eyes on your back like nettles through a shirt. At midday, you gather with the rest of the villagers in the churchyard for the weekly market. Here, the gossip is as thick as the smell of onions and goat cheese. You hear your own name, though it slips away a moment later, as if your mind refuses to hold on to even that basic truth. Someone asks about your mother. For a moment, your mind goes blank, as smooth and clean as a fresh washed plate. You mumble a reply and hope it suffices. Throughout the afternoon, the subject of the forest returns with a persistence usually reserved for infestations and taxes. The miller's apprentice, red-cheeked and eager to please, swears he saw you heading toward the woods on Friday. He describes your posture, your boots, even the way your hair caught the sun. He is insistent, but no one seems entirely certain what to make of it. The carpenter, whose wisdom is legendary only because he is the oldest living person in the village, shakes his head. "It is not the first time," he says. "I have seen it before, and I will see it again. The forest changes those who enter it, but never for the better. Mark my words." You smile at him, a careful, practiced smile. You do not remember when you learned to make it, but it fits your face well enough. There is comfort, you suppose, in hearing your own experiences retold with such confidence by others. It saves you the trouble of remembering for yourself. As the afternoon slips away, you drift from group to group, a silent observer in your own life. You hear more stories. A cousin who came back with a gap where his front tooth used to be, a woman who forgot her own wedding day, a child who refused to answer to his own name. Each story is told with the certainty of someone recalling a personal offense, though none of the details ever quite match. You notice, too, the way people look at you. Not fear exactly, nor pity, but a wary sort of curiosity, as if you are both familiar and unfamiliar, a walking question mark in a world that prefers its answers simple and unchanged. By evening, you find yourself at the tavern, sitting at a rough-hewn table with a bowl of stew cooling in your hands. The innkeeper's daughter brings you bread, her face open and kind, and you realize you have no idea how old she is. 10, 20, ageless, like everyone here. She glances at you, her eyes lingering just a moment too long. "Are you feeling all right?" she asks, her voice low. "You look different, younger, maybe." You force a laugh, hoping it sounds natural. I found a new soap, you reply. Works wonders. She smiles back, but her expression is uncertain. For a moment, you almost confess, almost tell her about the stream, about the way the trees seem to hum in the silence, about the strange lightness you carried home like a secret, but you do not. What would be the point? By next Friday, you suspect even this conversation will have drifted from your mind. After supper, the villagers begin to file outside, muttering their good nights as they disappear into the darkness. You sit a little longer, savoring the warmth of the fire and the gentle murmur of voices from the far end of the room. You try to recall a single detail from the day, a name, a face, a promise you made to someone, but everything feels blurred, as if seen through the bottom of an empty glass. When you finally step outside, the air is cold and clean, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. You pause at the edge of the square, looking back at the tavern windows. For a moment, you are tempted to ask someone, anyone, if they remember who you were last week, but you do not. Instead, you walk home in silence, the quiet settling around you like an old blanket. As you lie in bed, the words of the carpenter echo in your mind. The forest changes those who enter it. You wonder, not for the first time, what you have already lost, and what, if anything, you might gain in exchange. But sleep comes quickly, and with it, the certainty that tomorrow will be much the same as today. In your dreams, the villagers' voices become the wind in the trees, telling and retelling the story of someone who might be you or might be anyone at all. You do not notice the changes at first. No one ever does. They begin as minor lapses, small enough to hide behind the bustle of daily chores. One day you forget where you left your knife. The next, you pause before greeting a neighbor, certain you once knew her name, now as elusive as the morning mist. You tell yourself it is nothing, that everyone grows forgetful, that memory is just another muscle worn thin by repetition. But as the week unspools, you begin to observe new patterns in yourself. Each Friday morning, as if compelled by some secret clockwork, you find your gaze drifting to the woods. The forest, always present, always patient, seems to swell at the edge of your vision, calling to you with a voice that is not quite a voice at all, more an itch beneath your skin. You catch yourself inventing excuses to be near the tree line. Perhaps the goats need fresh grazing, or perhaps the best kindling lies just out of sight. You resist, of course. You are not a fool, not entirely. The stories are old, but they have teeth. And yet, when the day turns heavy with boredom and the villagers retreat indoors, you feel a pull, gentle but insistent, as though the woods are a hearth and you are cold to your bones. By the third Friday, the ritual has become almost comforting. You wander to the forest's edge, telling yourself you will only look, only listen. The leaves shiver in the wind, their undersides pale and trembling. You watch the path disappear between the trees, and for a moment you are certain you see movement, a flicker of white, a darting shadow. Your heart beats a little faster, but not with fear. It is anticipation, hunger, something you dare not name. You start to notice it in others too. Old Tomas, whose back is more bent than the church spire, stands at his window each Friday at dusk, staring at the woods as if searching for a lost coin. The blacksmith's youngest son, no more than 6, drags his heels past the brambles, eyes wide and wondering. Even the priest, who preaches steadfastness and faith, lingers on the chapel steps, his prayers growing softer as his gaze grows longer. The village adapts, the rhythm of the week shifts subtly, everyone growing a little more restless as Friday approaches. Children are called inside earlier. Doors are bolted with extra care. Bread is baked in generous batches, as if a full stomach might anchor you to your own kitchen. Still, no one speaks of it directly. There are only sideways glances, the odd muttered warning, the sense that something waits just beyond the circle of lamplight. You find your own habits changing, as if shaped by forces beyond your understanding. You begin to lose interest in things that once mattered. The flavor of your favorite stew becomes indistinct, blurred at the edges. Old songs sound unfamiliar, the words slipping through your mind before you can catch them. Faces in the village turn into vague silhouettes, and sometimes you forget if a person is friend or stranger. When you do remember, the relief is brief, bittersweet, proof that you are still yourself for now. But the most unsettling change is the certainty with which you follow the pull toward the woods. Every Friday, you tell yourself it is the last time. You invent reasons to stay away, to busy yourself with chores or idle conversation. And yet, as evening falls, you find yourself at the edge once more, heart thrumming with nervous hope. The forest itself seems to notice. The trees lean a little closer each time, their roots pressing up through the earth like curious fingers. The air grows cooler, sharper, alive with the promise of secrets. Sometimes you think you hear laughter, soft, distant, half remembered. Sometimes you see shapes that cannot be explained, a splash of color, a glint of silver, the swift motion of something darting between the trunks. On these walks, you feel lighter, younger, as if some great burden has been lifted. But always, upon returning to the village, you sense the cost. Your memories feel thinner, stretched like old linen. You struggle to recall the details of your day, who you spoke to, what you promised, even the simplest chores. It is as if the woods are a sieve, letting youth pass through, but catching everything else. You do not speak of this to anyone. What would you say? That the woods call to you? That each visit leaves you with less than you had before? The villagers would only nod, offer platitudes, perhaps a charm or a prayer. They know, of course. Everyone knows, but no one remembers well enough to care. You begin to notice the same changes in others. The children are the most obvious. They return from the woods on Friday evenings with muddy faces and bright, bewildered eyes, unable to recall where they have been. The adults are more discreet, but the signs are there. The sudden laughter, the awkward pauses, the moments when a mother stares at her child as if seeing a stranger. The village grows quieter as the weeks go by. Conversations turn shallow, filled with the repetition of safe topics: the weather, the harvest, the price of eggs. No one lingers on memories. No one dares to ask too many questions. Instead, you all float from day to day, tied together by habit more than affection, by routine more than memory. Still, the pull persists. Every Friday, the woods beckon, and you go, even when you do not wish to. It becomes a kind of comfort, a release from the dull ache of forgetting. You return each time with a little less, but also a little lighter, as if the world itself is gently loosening its grip on you. On the last Friday of the month, you find yourself standing at the forest's edge just as the sun sets. The sky burns gold and red, and for a moment, everything feels sharp and real. You close your eyes, breathing in the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. You do not remember how many times you have stood here or what you have lost, but you know, with a certainty that is almost relief, that you will return next week, and the week after that, as long as the woods will have you. You walk home, the village behind you silent and strange, the faces at the windows blurred by dusk and distance. You tell yourself that this is normal, that everyone changes with time. But deep down, you suspect that time itself has become your enemy, and that the only thing truly unchanged is the forest, patient, ancient, and always waiting. There is a moment on a chilly morning after your most recent Friday walk when you see yourself in the mirror and pause. You are not a vain person. What villager has time for vanity, with mud beneath every fingernail and wrinkles earned by honest work? But today, your reflection holds you for longer than usual. The old wavering glass above the wash basin shows you a face you both recognize and do not. At first, it is subtle. The color of your skin seems fresher, cheeks pink, as if you have spent a long afternoon in the sun. Your eyes are clearer, less clouded by the dust of endless chores. The fine lines at the corners, marks of laughter, of worry, of too many cold mornings, are faded, almost gone. You tilt your head, searching for the face you remember from last week, last month, last year. It is still there, but different. Younger, softer, as if someone has pressed a wet cloth over your features and washed away the years. You lean closer, almost daring your reflection to move without you. For a brief, ridiculous instant, you expect the face to speak, to offer some explanation. But of course, it says nothing. Only the steady, curious eyes stare back, eyes that, for the first time in many seasons, remind you of the stories you heard as a child, the ones about changelings and fairy tricks, the ones that always ended badly. You laugh, the sound bouncing off the beams overhead. The villagers would surely have 1,000 opinions if you told them. Some would call it a blessing, others a curse. Some would quietly sidle away, crossing themselves when your back was turned. And yet, when you step outside into the muddy path between your door and the world, you realize that no one comments, no one gasps, no one shouts in alarm. If they notice at all, they say nothing. You remember the stories, The strange, unlucky souls who returned from the forest changed, and the way the rest of the village pretended not to see. It is easier, after all, to ignore what cannot be explained. You pass the butcher sharpening his cleaver on the stoop, and he nods at you as always. The children, playing in the dust, do not pause their game. The priest, glancing up from his sweeping, gives a wave, then looks away as if embarrassed by your existence. Perhaps it is not as unusual as you think. After all, in a village where faces change by the week and memories fade like morning mist, who would dare keep track? You catch your reflection again, this time in a puddle by the well, and see the same youth staring back, wide eyed and uncertain. You splash the water, erasing the face for a moment, but when it returns, it is still you. The day carries on, much as any other. You busy yourself with the endless repetition of chores, tending the goats, gathering firewood, patching a hole in the roof. Each task feels both familiar and strange, as if you are following instructions written for someone else. You fumble with the knots you used to tie without thinking. The path to the chicken coop seems longer, or perhaps your memory of it is shorter. By midday, you are visited by the old crone with her basket of dried herbs. She studies you, her eyes squinting with suspicion, as if she is trying to peer through your skin to the bones beneath. "You're looking well these days," she remarks. Her voice is flat, neither praise nor accusation. You consider her, unsure whether to thank her or apologize. Instead, you shrug, pulling your shawl tighter. "Spring agrees with me," you offer, though the words sound hollow even to your own ears. She nods, but does not look convinced. Spring comes late to these parts, and never so quick. You watch her hobble away, her footsteps slow but steady. You wonder, not for the first time, how old she really is. The oldest villagers never seem to change, not younger, not older, just steadily, stubbornly themselves, like the stones at the edge of the river. The afternoon drags on, the sky growing heavier with the promise of rain. You catch glimpses of yourself throughout the day, a flash in the window pane, a glimpse in the polished brass of a kettle, a shadow on the barn wall. Each time you search for something you have lost, a wrinkle, a freckle, a scar earned in childhood. Each time you come away empty handed, unsure whether to mourn or celebrate. You begin to worry, just a little. The stories always seemed harmless when they belonged to other people. Now, the fear is closer, more intimate, as if a hand is slowly closing around your memory. You test yourself, repeating the names of your family, the birthdays of your neighbors, the recipe for barley soup. The details slip through your grasp, frustratingly elusive. Evening falls, and you join the others for supper in the tavern. The room is crowded, filled with the usual din of laughter and argument, the smells of stew and spilled ale. You slip into conversation easily, following the rhythm of old jokes and familiar complaints. Yet, you notice the villagers watching you with sidelong glances, their eyes lingering just a moment too long. You try to remember who sat at your table last week, who told the story about the goat and the traveling merchant. The details are blurred, the faces drifting through your mind like half forgotten dreams. As the night deepens, someone remarks on your appearance. It is the miller's wife, bold and nosy as ever, her cheeks flushed from drink. She leans in, squinting at you as if you are a strange new breed of livestock. You are looking sprightly, dear, she declares. Got a secret to share, or just a new peddler's lotion? The table laughs, but you feel a cold prickle at the base of your neck. You deflect with a joke, something about drinking from the wrong side of the mug, and the conversation moves on. But the question lingers in the air, settling into the spaces between words. Walking home, you pause by the well once more. The moon rides high above, painting the water with silver. You peer into the depths, half expecting to see a stranger staring back. But it is only you, changed, uncertain, and just a little afraid. You make a promise, there by the well, that you will not return to the forest. You will break the habit, resist the pull, anchor yourself with routine and reason. But even as you make the vow, you know it is a lie. The woods are patient, the woods are waiting, and so are you. Inside, you wash your face, the cool water stinging against new skin. You study your reflection one last time before bed, tracing the lines of your face as if committing them to memory. In the silence of your room, you whisper your own name over and over until the sound loses all meaning. When sleep finally comes, you dream of the forest, not the one you know, but an endless labyrinth of shadows and laughter, where every path leads back to the place you started. In your dream, you are always younger, always searching, always forgetting what you came to find. You wake before dawn, the echo of your own name lingering on your tongue. Outside, the village sleeps and the woods wait, their secrets intact. It is a little known truth that every village harbors at least one person who fancies themselves a keeper of history, a chronicler of events both grand and trivial. In your village, this role falls to Master Ulrich, the scribe, whose spectacles are so thick that his eyes appear permanently astonished. His home is crammed from rafter to hearthstone with papers, scrolls, and ink stained ledgers, all bursting with the kind of stories only he remembers: births and deaths, marriages and misfortunes, the days the river flooded and the year the pox ran riot through the sheep. Master Ulrich's Chronicle is less a book and more a sprawling testament to boredom. He records everything: the height of the barley harvest, the number of eggs laid in June, the sequence of bells rung at every wedding. If there is a secret to immortality, Ulrich is sure it lies in documentation, not magic. This is why you find yourself at his doorstep on a Tuesday morning, as if the answer to your creeping uncertainty can be found between the lines of his careful script. He welcomes you inside with a distracted wave, his mind already halfway across a page. You do not remember when you last visited, though he assures you it was only a few weeks ago. He rummages through a stack of parchment until he finds the right volume, the one for this year or maybe last, the difference blurring as he squints at his own handwriting. He asks what brings you, and you hesitate. What can you say? That you seek proof of your own existence? That you hope to find your lost memories pressed between the pages like wildflowers? In the end, you mutter something about wanting to help with his records, as if curiosity alone drove you here. Master Ulrich, grateful for any sign of interest, opens his great ledger and begins to read aloud the latest entries. May the 15th, he drones, storm damage to the western fence, 4 new lambs born, 1 chicken missing, and ah, yes, here it is. Villager returned from woods, notably more youthful, forgets name of mother. That is you, I presume. You flush, caught between embarrassment and irritation. The scribe's tone is not unkind, merely clinical, as if describing the weather or the color of a sunset. He turns the page, listing similar notations for others. A child who forgot her sister's name, a man who returned home unable to recognize his own house. The village, it seems, is full of such entries. You are not alone, only the latest in a procession of the mildly peculiar. Ulrich's hand shakes slightly as he writes a new note, your name and today's date, a brief mention of your continued youthfulness and occasional forgetfulness. You watch the words appear in dark ink, knowing they will outlast whatever scraps of memory you manage to keep. There is a pattern, you know, Ulrich muses, peering at a page from several years past. It always happens on a Friday. The victim returns refreshed but forgetful, and then the next week another follows, and so on. The cycle is as regular as planting season. You nod, though you do not trust yourself to speak. There is comfort in Ulrich's matter of factness, as if the chronicling of your peculiar fate somehow makes it less frightening, more manageable. If something can be recorded, it can not be wholly lost. That is the hope, anyway. As Ulrich flips through the ledger, you catch glimpses of your own life rendered in dry, impartial detail. The year you broke your arm, the time you lost 3 sheep to wolves, the autumn when you baked bread for the harvest festival. The memories come back in flashes, vivid, then gone, like sparks in the dark. Some entries mean nothing to you at all, and you suspect they never will again. There is a note in the margin, written in a different hand, shaky, almost childlike. Do not forget. You wonder who wrote it. You wonder if it was you. You leave Ulrich's house with the odd sensation of having read someone else's diary, a person who shares your name, your face, but not your memories. The sun is bright, the sky a sharp blue, but the world feels slightly thinner, as if a layer of meaning has been quietly peeled away. The rest of the week passes in a haze of routine. You repeat tasks that feel both new and old. You find yourself humming a melody you cannot place. The villagers greet you as usual, but their faces are less distinct, blurred by time and repetition. Once, you forget the way home from the fields and wander in circles until sunset. When you finally stumble into your yard, you are not sure whether to laugh or weep. On Thursday, Ulrich visits you. He brings a slip of parchment, a neat list of things you have forgotten. He tells you it is best to keep track, to write it all down each evening. Names, chores, small promises made to others. It helps, he says, though his voice is tinged with doubt. That night, you begin your own chronicle, copying Ulrich's method. Your writing is slow, the letters awkward. You list your family, the color of your house, the names of the goats. You try to remember your favorite food and settle on soup, though you cannot recall which kind. By Friday, your list has grown longer, but your sense of yourself is no clearer. You read your notes aloud before stepping outside, as if arming yourself against the forest's pull. But the woods wait, as they always do, dark and unchanging at the edge of the fields. You do not remember walking there, but suddenly you are standing at the forest's border, your heart beating too fast. The trees seem to lean in closer, their shadows long and inviting. You repeat the names from your list under your breath, clutching the paper in your fist. Still, you take one step, then another, into the hush beneath the leaves. When you return, the sun is low and the village is quiet. You glance at your paper, but the words are unfamiliar, as if written by a stranger. You fold the list, tuck it into your pocket, and go home, hoping tomorrow you will remember why you bothered at all. Master Ulrich will add another note to his ledger. Returned again, younger still, forgets more each time. The chronicle grows thicker, the pages heavier. Perhaps you think, this is how history is made, not in memory, but in the slow accumulation of forgetting. If there is anything that truly binds a village together, it is not blood or marriage, but the relentless web of obligations, half remembered favors, and the peculiar comfort of familiarity. You used to know this, or perhaps you only think you did. Memory is a slippery thing these days. Your family tries their best to tether you to what remains. There are meals where faces gather around the same battered table, voices rising and falling with the old rhythms of supper, laughter, and complaint. At these gatherings, you sense something has shifted, though no one will say so aloud. They tell stories, little ones, how you once sang to the goats to keep them calm, or how you scolded your younger brother for climbing the church roof. Their words hang between you like lanterns, illuminating corners of a room you cannot fully see. You nod, you smile, you play the role expected of you, but behind your eyes the scenes are blank. Sometimes a flash of warmth will ripple through your chest, a vague sense of pride or shame or tenderness, but you cannot connect it to any image, any specific event. Your sister catches you staring once, your spoon hovering above your soup. Do you remember, she begins, the year the river froze so solid we danced on the ice? You want to say yes. You want to remember the slap of cold wind, the sound of skates biting through the frost. Instead, you study her face, searching for some clue in the lines around her mouth, the hopeful tilt of her voice. You settle for a safe answer. Of course, you say, and she smiles, half believing. After supper, your mother, her hair more silver each year, or so you assume, sits beside you by the fire. Her hands are restless, always smoothing her apron, folding and unfolding scraps of cloth. She tells you about your childhood, about the things you loved, and the fears that kept you awake at night. You listen, grateful and guilty in equal measure, because each story is both a gift and a reminder of your own emptiness. Your father is less direct. He watches you with a patient sadness, as if waiting for the moment when you will return to yourself. He asks practical questions. Did you mend the fence? How many eggs today? You answer as best you can, guessing when you must, hiding your confusion behind a practiced nod. There is comfort in the routine, in the way he accepts your half truths and lets the rest pass. At times, you are struck by a sense of loss that is almost physical. You see a scar on your arm and cannot remember how it came to be. You find a wooden toy under your bed, its paint chipped and faded, and cannot recall who gave it to you. Your family fills in the gaps with their own recollections, weaving a tapestry of you from their memories, their love, their hope that the old stories will anchor you in place. It is a delicate bargain. They pretend you are still yourself, and you pretend not to notice the pain behind their smiles. You all speak carefully, choosing words that cannot betray the truth, that you are slowly becoming a stranger in your own skin. Sometimes you catch them exchanging glances when they think you are not looking, a flicker of worry, a silent question. Your younger brother, always the boldest, asks you outright one night, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you remember, really? You look at him, at the shape of his face, the stubborn set of his jaw. There is love there, you know that much, even if you cannot remember its origin. Enough, you say softly. I remember enough. He accepts this, though you see the disappointment in his eyes. Later, you find a note slipped under your door, written in his untidy hand. If you forget me, I will remind you every time. You fold the note and keep it close, a talisman against the darkness you feel gathering inside. The weeks roll on, marked by the same rituals, meals, chores, the slow unraveling of familiarity. Your family's stories become your lifeline, and you cling to them even as you sense their outlines growing fainter. You begin to write things down, copying your brother's note, scribbling reminders in the margins of old receipts and scraps of linen. Sometimes the words help, sometimes they only remind you of what is already lost. You dream more often now. In your dreams, your family gathers around you, their faces swirling and shifting like mist on the river. They call your name again and again until it sounds foreign, meaningless. You wake in the gray light of dawn, the echoes of their voices fading with the morning fog. One afternoon, your mother brings out a battered box filled with keepsakes, a lock of hair, a tiny boot, a cracked cup. She places them in your hands, one by one, describing each with careful detail. You nod, grateful for her effort, but the objects are strangers to you, their stories disconnected from anything you can feel. Still, you keep them in your room, hoping their presence will anchor you. Friday approaches once again, the woods pressing closer with every hour. Your family tries to distract you. Extra chores, a special meal, an evening of singing and games. But you feel the pull all the same, as steady and unyielding as the tides. When you finally slip away at dusk, you catch your father watching from the doorway, his face unreadable. The woods welcome you with their usual hush, the air cool and thick with promise. You do not stay long, just long enough to feel the weight of the village drop from your shoulders, to let the whisper of leaves erase another layer of memory. When you return, you are lighter, freer, but the faces around your table are even harder to place. Your family meets you with careful joy, searching your face for signs of the child, the sibling, the friend you used to be. They tell you the same stories, the ones you have already forgotten, and you let them, grateful for the warmth of their voices. You know you will lose more with each visit to the woods, but for now, their stories are enough to keep you tethered, if only for another week. In the quiet moments before sleep, you press your brother's note to your chest and whisper the names of your family over and over, like a prayer. You promise yourself you will remember just one more day, and the woods wait, patient as ever, for the next Friday. It happens so quietly at first that you almost miss it. You are not the only one, it turns out, who finds Friday afternoons oddly compelling, who feels the pull of the woods like a soft thread tugging at the corner of your mind. You notice it in small ways. A neighbor's child, usually noisy and wild, suddenly gone quiet as dusk approaches. A pair of sisters who vanish from the lane for an hour, returning with leaves tangled in their hair and a new lightness in their step. There are more frequent absences at the communal table, empty bowls left untouched, chairs cold until late into the evening. You realize, with a chill, that the forest has become a regular companion not only for you, but for others, children, adults, even a handful of elders who should know better. It becomes a kind of weekly migration, subtle and unspoken, as if the whole village is held by some ancient compact that none dare name aloud. The symptoms repeat themselves with a mocking regularity. People return a little brighter, a little smoother in the cheeks, a little more careless with the names of relatives and the rules of games. You hear laughter at odd moments, bubbling, high pitched, often tinged with an edge of confusion. The baker forgets how to plait his loaves and must relearn from his apprentice. The miller's youngest son addresses his mother as aunt, to her consternation and quiet grief. You overhear a heated argument between two men over the ownership of a goat, only to see them shrug and wander away before it is settled, as if the point of the quarrel has slipped their minds. The children, especially, seem to change. Their games lose the structure you remember, becoming wild improvisations with shifting rules and forgotten scores. You watch as a group of them chase one another through the square, inventing new names for themselves with every lap. By the time they are called home, not a one can recall who was meant to be it or why they started running in the first place. The adults respond by inventing new rules for Fridays. Children are sent to bed early or kept indoors with treats and stories. Chores are doubled and tripled in an effort to fill the hours before dusk. Still, as the sun slips behind the trees, you catch glimpses of villagers wandering to the edge of the forest, some alone, some in small, silent groups. They return as always, younger, brighter, more adrift. You begin to wonder if it is a sickness or a kind of enchantment that no one has the strength to resist. Perhaps it is simply the natural order of things, a weekly forgetting, a slow erosion of the self that makes the days easier to bear. You try to fight it, you really do, scribbling reminders in your journal and repeating names aloud until your throat aches. But when Friday comes, you find your own feet turning toward the trees, your own voice growing quieter with each step. One night you sit at supper with your family and realize, with a start, that the faces around the table are changing. Your younger brother, so tall and sharp eyed only a season ago, is now short and round cheeked again, his laughter strange in your ears. Your sister's hair, once streaked with gray, gleams like polished chestnut. Your mother's hands move with a new energy, her voice lighter than you remember. The changes unsettle you. You watch your family for signs that they too are afraid, but they only smile and shrug when you remark upon it. The fresh air does us good, your mother insists, her eyes avoiding yours. Your brother boasts that he is growing backwards, a day younger every week. You try to laugh with them, but the sound catches in your throat. It is not just your family. The whole village begins to look strangely renewed, yet oddly empty, as if a crowd of strangers has taken the place of your neighbors. The faces are familiar, but the stories behind them have faded, replaced by new habits, new jokes, new nicknames. You try to map out the old connections in your head, but the lines blur and twist until even your own place in the web feels uncertain. As the Fridays pass, a new kind of ritual emerges. The villagers gather in the square at sundown, sharing food and gossip, their conversations looping in circles. Sometimes someone will propose a game, an old one, half remembered, and everyone joins in, making up the rules as they go. The children are the most eager, their laughter echoing off the stone walls, their eyes bright and empty. The elders, those who once resisted the woods, begin to falter. You see them hovering at the edge of gatherings, faces pinched with worry, eyes darting from one renewed face to another. A few try to keep the old order, reminding the children to recite their prayers, urging the adults to keep up traditions. But the pull of the woods is too strong, and their authority fades with each passing week. Soon, even the eldest among you begin to look younger, their memories thinning along with their hair. Some attempt to create new customs to mark the passage of time. Someone suggests painting a mark on each door every Friday so the village can keep track of who has changed, who is lost. The first week, the marks appear bright and hopeful, circles, stars, the odd animal face. By the second week, half have been washed away by rain or forgotten altogether. By the third, no one mentions them. You cling to your own fading recollections, writing in your journal every night, repeating the names of your loved ones like a prayer. Still, you feel yourself slipping, becoming part of the new pattern. You forget the names of the streets, the order of the seasons, the birthdays of your kin. Some days you wake with the uneasy certainty that you have lived this day before, that every Friday is the same, circling back to the woods, the forgetting, the uneasy rebirth. Yet, in the growing emptiness, there is a strange sense of freedom. The weight of old quarrels, old debts, old heartbreaks is gone. You live more in the moment, laughing at new jokes, greeting neighbors without the burden of history. Sometimes, when you catch your reflection in a puddle or a pane of glass, you see not yourself, but someone newly made, someone with no past to regret. On the last Friday of the month, the entire village seems to pause at the edge of the woods, as if waiting for permission to continue. The forest hums with promise, the air thick with expectation. You step forward with the others, feeling the bond of the lost generation all around you. For a moment, you are not alone. For a moment, forgetting feels almost like a blessing, and then the forest takes you and the village for another week. In every village, there is someone who carries the burden of old stories, who walks a half step out of time with the rest. Here, she is called the witch, the wise woman, the hag, though she prefers no title at all. Her name, like so many things, slips your mind more often than not, yet you remember her house, a lopsided cottage at the end of the lane, roof sagging beneath the weight of ancient thatch, and trailing smoke that smells of dried herbs and slow secrets. You find yourself visiting her, though you cannot recall if it is for the first time or the 10th. The path to her door feels familiar under your feet, packed smooth by years of curious or desperate villagers. Some say she has lived here forever, and you would believe it, for her eyes hold the stubborn gleam of someone who has seen too much and forgotten too little. She greets you with a grunt and gestures you inside, barely glancing up from the pot she stirs over her fire. Her cottage is cluttered, bundles of lavender, jars of cloudy liquid, books so old their spines are gone to dust. You try to remember what brought you here, but your thoughts scatter in the warmth and the dizzying scent of dried flowers and something sharp, almost metallic. So, she says without turning, the woods have their hooks in you now, do they? You hesitate, unsure whether to deny or confess. You settle for the truth. I think so. I keep forgetting things. The old woman cackles, a sound that is equal parts amusement and warning. Everyone forgets, child, but not everyone goes looking for it in the trees. She ladles a thick, murky liquid into a mug and shoves it into your hands. Drink. It tastes of roots and earth, as if the forest itself has been boiled down to its essence. You cough, and she watches you with thinly veiled delight. You are not the first to come asking questions, she says, voice dropping low, but most are too far gone to listen by the time they get here, or too afraid. She settles herself across from you, her eyes flicking from your face to your hands, as if reading your future in the trembling of your fingers. The forest is old, older than this village, older than the stones and the river. It is a hungry place, always has been. Used to be, it took livestock, then it took children. Now, it is content to nibble at the edges, Just a little youth, just a handful of memories, but mark my words, it never gives back what it takes. Not really. You shiver, feeling the weight of her words settle into your bones. She tells you of others, a maiden who went into the woods for love and came back with a heart empty as a cracked jug, a woodcutter who grew younger and younger until he was so small he slipped between the roots and was never seen again. Her stories are layered with irony and resignation, told as if she has long since accepted that no one will remember them for long. There are bargains in this world, and then there are debts, she says, shaking her head. Most think they are clever, trading what they do not want, old pain, bad memories. But memory is a trickster. Give up enough, and you will not remember what you loved or why you cared. The forest is not cruel, just thorough. You ask because you must, if there is a way to stop it, if there is a cure. She smiles, not unkindly. If there were, do you think I would still be here, alone at the end of the lane, full of stories no one remembers? She gestures around the cluttered cottage, the jars, the books, the bundles of herbs. I write them down, sometimes, hide them where the roots cannot reach. But the forest is patient. What it does not take from your mind, it takes from the world. Soon enough, even these stories will vanish. You think of your own attempts at record keeping, the scribbled lists, the diary with pages already blurring, the notes your brother left for you. They help a little, but every Friday, the ink looks fainter, the meaning more elusive. She offers you a charm, a lump of knotted twine, threaded with a coin and a scrap of bone. It might help, she says, or it might not. Sometimes the forest is in a generous mood. You slip it over your wrist, feeling faintly ridiculous, but also strangely comforted. Before you leave, she presses a final story into your hand, a scrap of parchment, the ink already smudged at the corners. Read it every morning. Speak it aloud if you can. Her voice is unexpectedly gentle. It will remind you of yourself for a while. Outside, the day has faded, the air sharp and blue. You clutch the charm and the story, repeating your name under your breath. The woods loom at the edge of the village, innocent in their stillness. That night, you dream of roots twisting around your feet, pulling you gently under the earth. In the dream, you are both young and ancient, your memories scattered like leaves. The witch stands at the threshold, watching, her eyes bright as embers. In the morning, you wake and read the parchment, your voice unsteady but growing stronger with each word. It helps, a little, but when you pass a neighbor in the lane, you realize you no longer know if she is friend or family. The forest, it seems, is always hungry, and your memory is the easiest meal. Later, you see the witch at the market, her arms full of herbs. She catches your eye and nods, as if to say, "Yes, I remember you, at least for today." The villagers, for their part, treat you the same as ever. The baker forgets your favorite bread. The children invent new names for you. The scribe adds another entry to his ledger. Consulted the witch, no improvement. You smile at the irony. The stories, like you, circle back on themselves, fading a little more with each telling. Still, you clutch the charm, repeat the witch's tale, and mark the passing days as best you can. The woods wait, the village forgets, and the witch at the end of the lane continues to gather her herbs and her stories, guarding them for as long as she remembers how. Some things, you believe, are too strong to be lost: joy, grief, fear, the taste of bread just pulled from the oven, and above all, love. Surely love persists, even when names and faces have faded, even when the past is no more than a blurred painting hanging crooked in the mind. But the forest is thorough, as the witch warned you, and when it comes to love, it takes its time. It begins with a feeling, a hollow ache that cannot be named, settling under your ribs like a misplaced hope. You notice it most on quiet mornings, when the village is still and your hands are busy with simple tasks: chopping wood, plucking feathers from a bird, kneading dough. There is an urge, sharp as a splinter, to call out to someone, to see a certain smile, to share a joke that once meant the world. But the details slip away when you try to grasp them, like minnows in the stream at dusk. One afternoon, as you walk through the square, you catch a glimpse of a face in the crowd, eyes that linger on yours a moment too long, a familiar tilt of the head, a mouth that seems on the verge of a smile. You should know. You pause, heart stuttering, certain that if you just look a little longer, the name will come, the memory will unspool. But it does not. The person turns away, and you are left with the peculiar sense of having missed something important, something that once belonged to you. The feeling haunts you for days. At night, you dream of laughter echoing through the fields, of hands brushing yours in the darkness, of whispered promises beneath the old willow at the river's bend. In your dreams, the faces are never quite clear, blurred at the edges, like the world seen through tears. You wake with the ache sharper than ever, fingers curled around your pillow as if holding on to a ghost. You ask the witch about it on a visit you do not remember deciding to make. She listens, nods, and stirs her cauldron. The forest is clever, she says at last. It takes the easy things first: names, dates, old wounds, but love is stubborn. It can outlast almost anything. Almost. She gives you a look that is both pity and warning, but it fades too in the end. Even the strongest feeling will crumble if you forget what made it strong. You ask if there is any way to bring it back, to recover what you have lost. She shakes her head, her eyes distant. You might remember the feeling, the echo, but the song itself, once it is gone, it is gone. She presses a dried sprig of rosemary into your palm. Carry this if you must. It is for remembrance, or at least for comfort. You carry it with you, tucking it into your shirt, inhaling its sharp scent whenever the ache grows too heavy. Sometimes, when you pass a stranger in the lane, the scent brings a flicker of warmth, a heartbeat of recognition, but the feeling never lingers. You are left only with a sense of longing for something you can no longer name. The villagers, too, seem caught in the same silent mourning. Two lovers, once inseparable, now pass each other in the square with polite nods, eyes blank and searching. A widow visits the graveyard every Sunday, laying flowers on a stone whose name she cannot recall. Children invent elaborate stories about romances that never happened, cobbling together scraps of overheard gossip and faded memory. You notice that the miller's daughter, once the subject of many whispered conversations, now walks with a new companion each week. Sometimes she laughs as if remembering an old joke, only to fall silent, confusion clouding her face. The blacksmith carves small figures from wood and leaves them on doorsteps, never sure who they are meant for. One evening, you find a scrap of paper tucked into your coat pocket, a fragment of a letter written in your own hand, but addressed to no one. The words are tender, earnest, and tinged with longing. You read it over and over, trying to conjure the face or the moment that inspired it, but the memory will not come. Still, you fold the note and keep it safe, a token from a life that grows less familiar by the week. There are moments, fleeting and precious, when the ache lessens. A sudden burst of laughter at the market, the comfort of a hand on your shoulder, the soft hush of the river at dusk. You cherish these, knowing they are all that remain of what was once love. Perhaps you think, this is enough. The witch would say so anyway, that even the echo of love is better than a life lived without its shadow. Friday comes again, and you feel the pull of the woods as keenly as ever. This time, you pause at the edge, clutching your sprig of rosemary, whispering a name that might have been yours or someone else's. The forest waits, patient and silent, its promise unchanged. You return younger, lighter, and emptier, the ache beneath your ribs reduced to a faint, hollow echo. You search the faces in the village, hoping for a spark of recognition, a flare of old feeling. But all you find are strangers, smiling at you with the same uncertainty you feel. That night, you sit by the window, watching the moon rise over the dark line of the woods. You hold the letter, the rosemary, and the memory of a love that is no longer yours. You promise yourself you will not forget, not entirely, not yet. You repeat the vow until sleep takes you, and with it, whatever remains. In the morning, the ache is still there, but softer. You rise, greet the day, and step into the pattern of forgetting that shapes your life, comforted by the knowledge that, even as everything else is lost, you once loved and were loved in return, even if you no longer remember who or how or why. You grow used to people vanishing, though you do not remember when it started. At first, it is just the smallest absences, a seat empty at the table, a house that remains shuttered for a day or two longer than usual. The village absorbs these losses quietly, as if it is easier to let the missing slip away than to ask after them. Fridays bring a peculiar stillness. You feel it gathering in the lanes before dawn, when even the cockerels crow more softly. By late morning, there is a nervousness in the air. Adults double check their doors. Children are forbidden from wandering alone, and the witch's windows glow with candlelight long into the day. The forest, for its part, seems to draw nearer, its branches brushing the eaves of the outermost cottages, its roots creeping slyly beneath fences and paths. The first time someone fails to return, it is the tanner's wife, a quiet woman with a shy smile and a habit of humming while she worked. You do not notice her absence at first. The village continues as it always does, work to be done, bread to be baked, gossip to be passed around the well. But by Sunday, her husband is searching, his face raw with worry. He retraces her steps from the back door to the forest's edge, calling her name until his voice breaks. Others join in, but the search is half hearted. Everyone has seen this pattern before, even if no one quite admits it. A week later, the tanner sits alone at market, his eyes empty. People pass him by, their words cautious and soft, as if speaking too loudly might invite the same fate. There is no talk of funeral or wake. No one is sure what to mourn. The witch warns against searching the forest, and the priest offers a prayer for the lost, a prayer repeated so often it is more habit than hope. You notice, too, the absences among the children. One Friday, two of the miller's sons vanish together, their laughter fading into the trees. When only one returns, muddy, confused, unable to explain, the village shrugs and carries on. Even he seems to forget his missing brother within days, his games resuming as if nothing has changed. Other disappearances follow. An old man, known for his endless stories, a blacksmith's apprentice, barely more than a boy, a shepherdess whose voice was once the clearest at festival. Sometimes their homes are quietly tidied away by relatives. Sometimes they are simply left to fall to ruin, windows blank and dark, gardens swallowed by weeds. You ask the witch, once, if those who disappear are gone for good. She is unusually quiet, her hands still as she stares into her cup. Not gone, she finally says, just farther than the rest of us. The woods take, and sometimes they keep. Her answer unsettles you more than you care to admit. You begin to watch the forest with new wariness, as if the trees are sizing you up, waiting to see whether you are ready to join the others. You find yourself checking your own door at night, repeating your name, clutching your charms and scraps of memory a little tighter. The disappearances become a kind of morbid marker, a way to measure time. Each missing face is added to Master Ulrich's ledger, though even he seems unsure whether to write their names in ink or pencil. The villagers do not speak openly of it, but there are changes. A little less laughter in the evenings, a touch more suspicion in every greeting. When someone fails to appear for market or mass, there is a pause, a tightening of breath before conversation resumes. It is as if everyone is waiting for their own turn to vanish. You wonder sometimes what it would be like to simply walk into the forest and never come out. Would you become part of the trees, a shadow among the roots, a whisper in the wind? Or would you fade so completely that not even the witch would remember you? One Friday, you catch yourself ascending at the threshold of the woods, your feet itching to cross the invisible line. The pull is stronger than ever, a sweet promise of release from confusion, from the ache of half memories. For a moment, you consider surrendering, letting yourself be claimed like so many others. But something, a flash of fear, a stubborn thread of self, pulls you back. You retreat to the village, watching the trees from the safety of your window. That night, you hear laughter echoing from the woods, soft and far away. You wonder if it is the tanner's wife, or the miller's missing son, or some new companion you have already forgotten. The village, for all its unease, learns to move forward. New routines emerge. Doors are locked earlier on Fridays, children kept closer, meals served in hurried silence. People stop asking after the missing, their names fading as quickly as footprints in snow. You find yourself forgetting their faces, their voices, even as you try to hold on to them. And yet, with every disappearance, something of the village is lost. A story, a tradition, a song. The square feels wider, the gatherings smaller. Even the forest seems changed, hungrier and more satisfied, its edges humming with secrets only the vanished could tell. You keep writing in your journal, though the entries grow shorter, the handwriting less certain. Some nights you look back and do not recognize your own words. You mark each Friday with a tally, a small black line for every soul who does not return. The page fills slowly, inexorably. One evening, you see a child playing at the edge of the woods, her dress bright against the gloom. She looks up and smiles at you, her face achingly familiar. You open your mouth to call her name, but nothing comes. She fades into the trees, her laughter trailing after her, and you are left with only the certainty that you have lost something precious once again. Friday comes, and with it, the pattern repeats. Someone disappears, the village closes ranks, and you, younger and emptier, move through the world like a ghost in your own life. It is Master Ulrich, ever the scribe, who first suggests keeping a calendar. It seems like such a small, sensible defense against the tide of forgetting, to mark the passage of time, to assign events to days, to build a wall of dates against the encroaching fog. You adopt the idea eagerly, perhaps too eagerly, as if by tracing the bones of your life onto parchment, you can keep them from dissolving altogether. You find a scrap of sturdy paper and rule it into squares, one for each day of the week. Every evening you force yourself to write something, anything, about the day just lived. Sometimes it is only the weather, rain, heavy and gray, or the chores you managed, gathered firewood, mended socks. Sometimes you attempt to record a memory, but your pen hovers over the blank space, uncertain, as if the events of the day have already begun to fade, even as you try to capture them. At first, you find the act comforting. The calendar is a map, a promise that there is a before and an after, that you are more than the sum of the hours you have already lost. You take to reading yesterday's square each morning, reciting the words aloud as a kind of spell. Today I spoke to the miller's daughter. She smiled at me. The facts are small, almost pitiful, but they are yours. Soon others in the village follow suit. Calendars sprout on door frames, on the backs of cupboard doors, even scratched into the packed earth outside some cottages. At the market, you see neighbors comparing their notes, laughing when their versions of the day diverge. Did I see you at the well yesterday? No, that was the day before, was it not? The conversations are circular, both playful and desperate. There is a strange comfort in confusion shared. The witch approves of the practice, though she warns it is only a stopgap. Words fade too, she says, tapping her head. What you write down is just another kind of memory. Sooner or later, the forest will find a way in. Still, for a time, the calendars help. You remember to feed the chickens, to patch the roof, to ask after your brother's cough. You use the little squares to anchor yourself. Names, recipes, a joke you overheard, the price of eggs. The calendar becomes your ritual, a nightly prayer against the dark. But Fridays are always different. On Fridays, the entries trail off. You stare at the blank square, pen poised, and feel the old itch at the back of your mind, the urge to go to the forest, the strange certainty that you will come back changed. Sometimes you try to write a warning to your future self. Do not go. Remember who you are. But the words seem thin and unconvincing, and by the following Saturday, you cannot recall writing them at all. After each Friday visit to the woods, your calendar becomes a puzzle. The handwriting looks foreign, the words disconnected from feeling. Saw the blacksmith, his wife is gone. Baked bread, forgot to salt it. Rain again. You try to piece together the week, but the sequence slips and stutters. The facts are there, but the story is lost. Others struggle too. At the market, you watch as the villagers compare calendars, their faces crumpling with frustration or breaking into helpless laughter. No, I was at your house on Wednesday, not Thursday. I think you brought me soup. Or was it stew? The witch shakes her head, her smile both wry and kind. Soon you will be arguing over things that never happened at all. You begin to notice the gaps, days when nothing is written, or days that repeat themselves in a looping script. Once you find two Fridays side by side, neither of them making sense. Another time, you discover an entry in someone else's handwriting, as if a neighbor has borrowed your memories for the day. You stop asking questions. The answers only breed more uncertainty. The scribe, for his part, grows more determined. He proposes a grand village calendar, a single ledger in the church where everyone might add their events, their scraps of memory, in the hope that collective effort will triumph where individual minds fail. There is a brief flurry of enthusiasm. The book fills with stories, arguments, weather reports, even recipes. For a week or two, the villagers read the entries aloud at supper, each voice stumbling over half familiar names and events. But the entries grow thinner, more cryptic. The river sang, one reads, someone left a cake on my doorstep. A girl with golden hair who, soon, no one bothers to open the book and dust settles on the pages. The villagers return to their own calendars, their own battles against forgetting. You start to fear the calendar, in a way. It has become a record of your own decline, a chronicle of shrinking memory. You catch yourself repeating facts that have no meaning. The sky was blue, the bread was burnt, the witch gave me rosemary, as if the repetition will keep you tethered to yourself. But you feel lighter each week, untethered, adrift. One Friday, you wake and find the calendar gone, vanished from your wall. You search your house, certain you could not have misplaced it, but it is nowhere. When you ask your family, they only shrug, puzzled. Later, you spot a calendar in the ditch near the forest, its squares smeared and blank, pages fluttering in the wind. That evening, you begin a new one, tracing the old squares, writing your name at the top in careful letters. You promise yourself you will keep it safe. You will remember to write each day, and for a time, you do. The squares fill, the days pass, the world narrows to the space of a handful of words. But the woods are patient, and so is forgetting. On Fridays, you always hesitate. You pick up your pen, stare at the empty square, and wonder what it is you are meant to record. Sometimes you simply write Friday and leave it at that. You close your eyes and listen to the forest waiting. The calendar is your last defense, and you guard it fiercely. But you sense, with growing certainty, that you are losing the battle. The woods claim what they wish in their own time, and you can only watch as your life is parceled out, day by day, until only Fridays remain, blank and endless as the spaces between trees. At first, you think you can outsmart the forgetting. If memory is a kind of soil, perhaps it only needs better tending, a sharper tool, a more careful hand. You imagine yourself as the village's lone detective, sifting through clues, piecing together a mystery that everyone else has quietly abandoned. You begin with questions, simple and persistent. To the scribe, what did you write about me last week? To your brother, did I promise to fix the fence? To the witch, is there any spell, any remedy that can hold memory fast? You jot every answer down in a fresh notebook, the kind children use for copying out prayers. The first pages are brisk and hopeful. Your handwriting is neat, the words precise. You set yourself tasks. Every morning, before the pull of the forest can muddy your resolve, you test yourself with your own homemade quiz. What did you eat for supper yesterday? What song did your sister hum as she cooked? How many eggs in the basket? The answers come easily at first, and you feel a flush of pride, as if you are winning a game only you remember playing. You become, for a time, a scholar of the village's peculiar condition. You pester Ulrich for old records, plying him with bread and cider until he grudgingly allows you to rifle through dusty ledgers. You find patterns, or think you do. It is always Fridays, you scribble, always the forest, always something missing, never something gained. But there are puzzles that refuse to be solved. Why does the forest choose Fridays? Why do some disappear while others merely lose themselves by degrees? Why does no one truly resist the pull, no matter how dire the stories or how clear the warnings? The more you ask, the more you suspect there is no answer, only the endless loop of questions, circling the same drain. Your experiments grow more ambitious. One Thursday evening, you tie a piece of red cloth to your front door and scrawl a note to your future self. Do not go to the forest. In the morning, the cloth is gone, the note torn in half. You find yourself at the forest's edge, heart pounding, memory already fraying. You try again, bigger signs, louder warnings, even enlisting your family to lock the door and hide the key. Each time, you wake on Friday with your mind as blank as a fresh page and the forest as inviting as ever. You try to recruit others. You organize a meeting in the churchyard, inviting everyone who will listen to bring their calendars and their questions. A dozen villagers show up, shuffling and uncertain, clutching scraps of parchment and notebooks. You begin by sharing your findings, your theories, your hopes, your growing despair. For a moment, it feels as if you have struck a nerve. Others add their own observations. The baker's apprentice remembers once tying a string around her finger, only to find it gone by dusk. The miller swears he saw the witch walking in the woods on a Friday, though she denies it. The scribe proposes that the forgetting is a kind of blessing, less pain, fewer regrets, but no one laughs at his joke. The meeting ends in confusion, as all village meetings do. Some seem relieved to have spoken, others hurry away, anxious not to dwell on things that cannot be changed. You are left with more questions and fewer answers. You turn to magic, though you were never much for superstition. The witch lends you a handful of charms, ribbons braided with nettle, stones inscribed with symbols, a vial of bitter tasting syrup meant to anchor the soul. You try them all ritualistically before each Friday. You even spend a night awake, vowing to keep watch over yourself, to resist the pull of sleep and the lure of the forest. But as the sky pales and the birds begin their morning songs, you find yourself already at the edge of the trees, feet muddy, pockets full of moss. Your frustration grows. You berate yourself for every failure, every forgotten detail, every useless charm. You scold your reflection, try to make bargains with your own mind. If you can remember this, just this one thing, I will be satisfied. But memory is a trickster, and you wake each Saturday with fewer facts, less certainty, more doubts. The witch visits you one evening, unbidden. She finds you hunched over your notes, scowling at the incomprehensible scrawl of yesterday's plans. She sits across from you, silent, until your anger subsides. It is not just you, she says at last, her voice gentle. The forest wins every time. It always has. You want to protest, to insist that there must be a way, but you are tired, so tired, and your determination feels as brittle as old ice. Why do we keep fighting then? You ask her. Why bother with calendars and notes and meetings if the forest will always take what it wants? She shrugs, a slow, tired movement. Because it is in our nature to remember, even if only for a day, to hope, to try, and sometimes a story survives longer than the teller. That is enough. You do not know if she is right, but you keep writing, keep recording, keep testing the edges of your own forgetting. You become a connoisseur of irony. No one else in the village, you suspect, spends as much time documenting the futility of documentation. Your notebooks pile up, their contents as slippery as fish. On Fridays, you still lose. The pull is irresistible, the forgetting inevitable. But each week, for a few precious days, you hold on to your questions, your doubts, your stubborn refusal to surrender. You become, in your own small way, a historian of loss, a keeper of the village's most boring and most profound secret. And when you finally cannot remember why you began, you find a note in your own hand. Ask questions. Keep asking. You smile, not with triumph, but with something softer, an acceptance that even if answers vanish, the asking itself remains. There is always one who stands apart, or perhaps is simply left behind. In your village, she is known as Agatha. She is old, properly old, not just young and forgetful in the way the rest are becoming. Her face is all furrows and folds, skin like weathered parchment, eyes sharp as the thorny brambles on the edge of the wood. You do not remember when she arrived, or if she has always been there. Some say she came from another place. Others insist she was born on a night of thunder, the first to cry in the New World. All you know for certain is that she never steps into the forest, not even on Fridays. It is this refusal that sets her apart, as much as her age. Every Friday, while the village seems drawn like iron to the trees, Agatha sits by her door with a basket of mending, a cup of thin ale, and a look of unwavering disapproval. She hums old songs, ones you do not recognize, the melody curling like smoke in the air. Children are wary of her. Adults make excuses to hurry past her gate, but she seems content with her solitude. Curiosity gets the better of you one Thursday afternoon. You knock at her door, half expecting her to turn you away. Instead, she peers at you through narrowed eyes, shrugs, and waves you inside. Her cottage smells of lavender and mothballs, everything neat and orderly, as if dust itself is afraid to settle. There are bundles of dried flowers over the hearth, old books stacked in careful towers, and a strange stillness in the air, a sense that time is slower here, reluctant to move. She pours you a cup of herbal tea, the flavor sharp and unfamiliar, and waits for you to speak. You are not sure how to begin. You want to ask her how she does it, how she remembers, how she keeps herself whole while the rest of you unravel. I keep busy, she says, as if reading your mind. That, and I never trusted the woods, not even as a girl. My mother warned me. Some things want to be left alone. She sips her tea, her gaze steady. Most folk like a bit of magic until it costs them something they care about. You admit that you have tried everything: notes, calendars, charms, even the witch's odd concoctions. Nothing helps, at least not for long. She listens, patient, her hands never still, always folding or smoothing some bit of cloth. Memory is a muscle, same as any other, Agatha says. You let it grow weak, it leaves you. But sometimes the world conspires to make us forget, no matter how strong we think we are. You ask her if she is ever tempted, if the promise of youth, even for a moment, is not worth a little forgetting. She laughs, a sound dry as autumn leaves. I have earned every ache and wrinkle. They remind me I have lived. Her voice softens, and for a moment she looks terribly tired. I have seen too many come back young and empty. A village of children with no stories. What a dreadful thing. She tells you her ways, writing everything down, yes, but also repeating the old tales, teaching the songs, making the children recite their names and those of their parents and their parents before them. If you remember where you come from, you can always find your way home, she says, though her eyes betray a flicker of doubt. Or so I tell myself. You spend the afternoon with her, listening as she recites family lineages, harvest dates, even the recipe for the barley soup your mother once made. She makes you repeat them back, correcting your stumbles, her patience endless. It is comforting in a strange way to have someone insist on remembering. When you leave, she presses a scrap of cloth into your hand, embroidered with a date and your name in tidy, unhurried stitches. That night, you sew the cloth into your sleeve. You trace the letters with your thumb as you drift to sleep, repeating your name, your family, the names of your childhood friends. In your dreams, Agatha's voice weaves through the forest, binding the trees with invisible thread. Fridays come and go. You visit her each week, if you remember, and she greets you with the same fierce look, as if daring you to forget her face. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you call her by the wrong name, or forget the path to her cottage and wander the village, frustrated and embarrassed. She never chides you. She simply starts the lessons again, as if you were a child learning your letters for the first time. Others in the village are less diligent. The old rituals slip away, replaced by newer, simpler habits. Fewer and fewer people remember to say their prayers, to tell the old tales. Agatha is undeterred. She becomes a fixture at gatherings, demanding that stories be told and retold, dragging children into the center of the square to sing or recite family histories. Some grumble, but most comply, sensing the importance even if they cannot name it. She is not immune to loss. You see her falter, sometimes, her stories stuttering to a halt, her eyes clouding over for a heartbeat before she resumes. But she fights, always. The villagers come to rely on her, not just as a memory, but as a witness. When a name is lost, when a house stands empty, it is Agatha who mourns aloud, who marks the passing with a story, a song, or a handful of earth tossed on the doorstep. One autumn, you find her weeping quietly in her garden, her hands full of wilted rosemary. She does not explain, and you do not ask. You sit with her in the fading light, and together you recite the names of those who are gone, the list longer than you realized. Let the woods have their youth, she says softly, but not our stories. Not if I can help it. You resolve to keep her company as long as you are able. Each week, you repeat the rituals, the names, the stories, holding on to them like lifelines. The forest waits, patient and hungry, But for as long as Agatha remains, the village remembers, if only a little, if only for a day. And so the last old woman endures, her voice a thread binding the village to itself, her stubbornness a shield against the unrelenting tide of forgetting. You wonder, as you drift toward another Friday, whether it will be enough. For now, it is all you have. You have noticed it more and more lately, the strange flickering recognition that passes between villagers in the square, at the well, in the echoing hush of the chapel. There is a sense, not quite spoken, that every face here is both familiar and foreign, that every greeting hides a question. Who were you to me once? Who am I to you now? It happens with friends first. You pass the blacksmith who once sat at your table for supper and exchange a smile that is equal parts greeting and apology. You both sense the awkwardness, that thin veil where names should be, and move along before either can stumble into the embarrassment of uncertainty. Sometimes you hear the old laughter return, erupting suddenly as if from a spring beneath the ground. A joke with no remembered source, a story whose punchline has wandered off. The miller's daughter bursts into giggles while buying eggs, clutching her side, then blinks in confusion when others join in. For a moment, you all share a happiness untethered from anything but itself, joy echoing across the square with no beginning and no end. You begin to see more evidence that these echoes linger even as memory slips away. Once, while helping patch a leaky roof, you fall into step with a boy whose name you cannot place. As you hand him a nail, your fingers meet in a practiced way, and you both pause. There is a muscle memory there, a thousand small kindnesses, practiced and repeated, the residue of a friendship too persistent for even the forest to erase. You laugh, startled, and he laughs too. No words are needed. The work resumes, and when it is done, you part with a sense of accomplishment, as if you have repaired more than the roof. At gatherings, you notice new, awkward patterns of politeness. Every conversation begins with careful statements, with open ended questions. You learn to listen for clues, to wait for hints of history in a voice, a gesture, the way someone stands. It is a village of actors, everyone improvising, everyone hoping to land upon the right role. Children adapt best, inventing new games that never last more than a week, new alliances that shift like sand. Their friendships are forged and forgotten at dizzying speed, yet you see something unbreakable in their play, a delight in the moment, a resilience against the blank spaces left by forgetting. They are the masters of now, never burdened by what came before. Some evenings, you find yourself at the tavern, watching faces drift through firelight. Strangers greet you with warmth, and you are never quite sure if you have met them before. Sometimes you do not care. The ale flows, the stories grow taller, and you surrender to the comfort of camaraderie, even if it is only skin deep. Yet, in quieter moments, the echoes ache. You encounter a woman on the lane, her basket filled with wild herbs, and a sharp pang grips your chest. You are certain you have loved her, or hated her, or something in between. Her eyes meet yours for a heartbeat too long, and she seems about to say something important, but the moment passes. She turns away, and you are left with the echo of a feeling, strong, bittersweet, gone before you can name it. Agatha, the last old woman, understands. There are bonds deeper than memory, she says, folding your hand in hers as you walk together. We remember with our bones, with our laughter, with the way we say goodbye. She insists on rituals, shared bread, group songs, games that bring everyone together. She says these are the stitches holding the village together, even as everything else unravels. On Fridays, the echoes are strongest. Returning from the woods, faces seem newer, brighter, but the sense of displacement intensifies. The villagers look at each other with an urgency, a hunger, as if searching for something they have lost but cannot describe. For a while, you try to catalog these feelings, the shivers of deja vu, the snatches of half remembered melodies, the way certain hands feel right in yours. You fill a notebook with descriptions of these moments, but they resist capture, slipping away when you try to pin them down. There are moments when the village feels like a dream. You forget how you came to be standing at the well, or why the bread in your hands is still warm from the oven. Yet, a smile or a touch from a stranger is enough to make the world solid again, if only for a breath. One afternoon, you witness an argument at the market. Two men, red faced and loud, trading accusations about a pig or perhaps a lost tool. The quarrel escalates until one bursts out laughing, the other soon joining in. Their anger drains away as quickly as it rose. What were we fighting about? One asks. No one remembers, and it does not matter. The crowd disperses, the echo of laughter lingering. The church bell tolls on Sundays, and the villagers gather out of habit, if not faith. The priest's sermons are gentle, wandering, more stories than doctrine. He reminds everyone to be kind, to forgive, to cherish what little they hold. You think perhaps he understands better than most what it means to live in a village of echoes. Sometimes you wake in the night and think you hear voices outside your window, soft, overlapping, the ghosts of old friendships and lost loves. In the morning, you remember nothing except a deep sadness, quickly replaced by the urgency of the day. The forest continues its work, patient and relentless. The village grows younger, lighter, emptier. But still, the echoes remain. Laughter in the lanes, songs by the fire, the warmth of a stranger's smile. They are what you cling to when memory fails. Agatha's voice, a constant presence, guides you. Even if you forget everything else, remember this: kindness leaves an echo. You try, every day you try. Sometimes it is enough. And so you live among echoes, in a village of the half remembered and the almost forgotten, where every face is both stranger and friend. Every day a new beginning, every evening a fading memory, and every Friday the forest's patient invitation to start again, in a place where forgetting is as common as rain, and new beginnings arrive each week disguised as youth. Rebellion begins quietly, in fits and starts. No one wakes one morning and declares war on the woods. Instead, resistance simmers in sideways glances, in muttered complaints over stew, in the wary silence that descends every Thursday evening. It is Agatha, of course, who first voices what everyone else is thinking. At a rare full gathering in the square, she stands at the center, her voice sharp as a winter wind. We are letting it happen, she says. Every Friday we walk into those trees, and every week we come back less ourselves. What are we waiting for? The forest will not stop until it has all of us. The villagers shuffle, looking anywhere but at Agatha. The younger faces, bright, unlined, and already slipping from one another's memories, seem puzzled. Some of the older ones frown, as if trying to recall why the forest is a threat in the first place. You find yourself agreeing with Agatha, though you cannot say why. A strange energy crackles through the crowd. Fear, yes, but also hope, a longing for something different, for a break in the endless pattern. Someone mutters, "What can we do?" The forest calls, and we answer. We always have. Agatha will not be deterred. We remember more than we think, she says, her eyes sweeping the crowd. We are not beasts to be led by the nose. There must be a way to keep what is ours. Her words plant a seed. That week, the village stirs with the closest thing to excitement it has known in seasons. Plans are hatched, arguments kindled. The churchyard becomes a place of secret meetings, low voices plotting against the woods, as if against a living enemy. Some propose practical solutions. We should tie ourselves together, says the miller, so that if one wanders, the rest can pull him back. A group of young mothers suggests posting guards along the tree line, armed with torches and pots and pans, anything noisy enough to drown out the call of the woods. Ulrich, ever the record keeper, proposes a contract to be signed by every villager swearing never to step into the forest on Fridays. You volunteer for a night watch, along with a handful of others. The first Friday is tense. Villagers take turns patrolling the paths with lanterns, shouting warnings at anyone who dares stray too close to the trees. Agatha sits on her stoop, knitting and glaring at the forest, as if sheer force of will might turn it back. At first, the measures seem to help. That week, fewer people disappear, more faces return to their homes, confused but unharmed. The sense of victory, however, is fleeting. The next Friday, the watch is thinner. Several guards simply forget to come. Those who patrol the borders find their lanterns dimming, their steps growing slow and uncertain. By the following week, the old pattern has reasserted itself. The woods call, and the villagers answer. The rebellion does not die, but it sours. Frustration mounts. Some blame Agatha, others blame the witch, a few blame the scribe for not recording their victories well enough. Old quarrels resurface. The young are scolded for their curiosity, the elders for their complacency. Arguments turn in circles, like so many other things in the village. But something does change. A stubbornness takes root. A group of teenagers, tired of being told to behave, form a forest club and promise never to go near the woods again. The witch begins weaving new charms, sewing bits of iron and thistle into little bags, distributing them with whispered blessings. Ulrich places his contract on the church door, and week after week, people sign and resign, their names multiplying like weeds. Agatha refuses to give up. She invents rituals for every Thursday. Songs sung at sunset, long recitations of names and stories, meals where everyone brings a dish and tells a tale from the oldest memory they can muster. The rituals are awkward at first, but gradually the villagers come to look forward to them. For a few hours, they are united by something other than loss. You become Agatha's apprentice of sorts, gathering stories, helping organize the rituals, keeping watch with a sharpened stick, though you suspect it is more for comfort than for defense. On the nights when the urge to walk into the woods is strongest, you recite the names you have learned, the old tales Agatha taught you. It helps. Sometimes, still, the forest waits. Each Friday, its shadows seem to grow deeper, its silence heavier. There are nights when you feel it in your bones, a pulse, a gentle tug, a reminder that rebellion here is less a battle and more a delay. Yet, you notice the difference. Even as memories slip away, even as some are lost to the woods, the rituals endure. The village becomes a little more itself, less the sum of its losses, more the measure of its resistance. Laughter returns to the square, tentative but real. The young paint signs and symbols on their doors keep out forest in bright chalk and crooked letters. The witch plants hedges of thorn and nettle along the paths, and for a time the brambles slow the urge to wander. Some nights, Agatha stands with you at the edge of the trees, her voice steady. It may never be enough, she admits, but it matters that we try. You believe her, even as you feel the woods waiting, patient and eternal. Perhaps rebellion here is not a matter of winning or losing, but of insisting again and again that you are more than what the forest would make of you. And so, each Thursday the village gathers, and each Friday you hope. The forest listens, and so do you. There is a point at which the act of forgetting ceases to be a calamity and becomes merely something you do, like breathing or eating or sweeping the floor at the end of the day. In your village, forgetting is no longer a surprise or a sorrow. It is an ordinary thing, a quiet, invisible labor woven into every routine. The rituals of resistance persist, but so does the familiar pattern of loss. Now, when someone forgets a name at the table, the moment passes with only the faintest ripple of discomfort. A brother becomes a cousin, a neighbor is demoted to stranger, and the village shuffles along, each person adjusting to new roles as easily as putting on a borrowed coat. Children, as always, are the quickest to adapt. They take the rules of the village as they find them. Sometimes you remember, sometimes you do not. They invent elaborate games to test the boundaries of memory, hiding objects, inventing secret codes, swapping names for a day. The older ones help the younger ones remember what matters. Which house is safe? Which path leads to the well? Which face belongs to which friendly hand? They laugh at adults' confusion and, in their innocence, turned forgetting into a sort of shared joke. Adults settle into the new reality, carving out small routines that anchor them to the present. In the market, you hear the same questions repeated day after day. Did I owe you a loaf? Are you the one who mends shoes? Was it my goat you borrowed, or was it yours? The answers do not really matter. By tomorrow, the questions will be new. Again, even disputes, once heated and bitter, now trail off before reaching any conclusion, both parties losing interest or the thread of the quarrel itself. Agatha, ever watchful, continues to keep the records alive, but even she admits that some stories are better lost. There are things we do not need to carry forever, she says, patting your hand as you struggle to recall some long ago slight or the taste of a vanished festival cake. Sometimes forgetting is mercy. You notice that the act of keeping a diary or a calendar is now less about holding on to the past and more about giving yourself something to do, one more small task to fill the hours. Your pages are filled with repetitions, reminders, and half sketched faces. The same meal appears for supper 3 nights running, and no one complains. You write down recipes you can no longer cook, draw maps of a village you now navigate by instinct rather than memory. There is a strange comfort in the absence of memory. The wounds of yesterday are soon gone, old feuds lose their sting, and fresh starts are always just around the corner. You marvel sometimes at how easy it is to let go, how quickly the ache of a forgotten friend fades, replaced by the warm haze of now. Even the ache for your own former self grows less sharp. You become accustomed to the lightness of having so little to carry. At gatherings, the villagers invent new customs to fill the empty spaces. Songs are short and simple, their words changing from week to week, always easy to relearn. Games involve guessing, improvisation, laughter at one's own confusion. The priest encourages kindness above all, reminding everyone that forgiveness is easier when you cannot recall an offense. No one is left out. Newcomers and strangers are welcomed without question, for everyone is, at heart, a newcomer and a stranger. Forgetting shapes your relationships in new ways. Friendships are built on shared chores and small acts of kindness rather than shared history. Love is measured not in grand gestures or old stories, but in the comfort of holding hands by the fire, the way someone remembers to share their bread or fetch an extra blanket. The bonds between villagers are softer, more flexible, and, in their way, more forgiving. Still, not everything is lost. Some memories cling stubbornly, surfacing in dreams or flashes of deja vu. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a window and feel the weight of all the lives you have lived: child, sibling, lover, friend. Sometimes, at twilight, you remember a voice or a song, a moment of laughter, a feeling that cannot be named. You let these echoes wash over you, grateful for their persistence. Agatha and the witch become the village's unofficial guardians of the past, holding on to what little is left and passing it on when they can. Sometimes, in the quiet after supper, you gather at Agatha's hearth, listening to her stories, repeating the names of those who are gone. The stories are shorter now, stripped to their essence, but still, they bind you together for a time. Fridays, of course, remain peculiar. You feel the pull, but now it is just another part of the week, like sweeping the doorstep or fetching water from the well. The urge to go into the woods is met with a resigned shrug, a nod to inevitability. Some weeks you resist, some weeks you do not. Either way, you return lighter, younger, and with fewer burdens to carry. The forest, ever patient, accepts your offerings. It does not gloat or threaten. It simply waits, ancient and unmoved, as you and your neighbors continue to drift through its shadow. Sometimes you wonder if there is freedom in this endless forgetting, freedom from regret, from guilt, from the chains of memory. You think perhaps this is how the village endures, not by clinging to what has been lost, but by embracing the emptiness, the possibility of always beginning again. And so, forgetting becomes your habit, your heritage, your secret comfort. The village continues, unburdened and untroubled, each day a clean slate, each week a new chance to discover who you are, who you might become, for as long as the woods will let you. There comes a morning, though you cannot say which, when you wake before dawn and find yourself adrift in your own home, as if walking through a stranger's life. Your hands move by habit, fetching water, stirring embers in the hearth, brushing dust from a table whose history is as blank as the wood itself. You reach for your comb and catch sight of yourself in the little round mirror nailed above the wash basin. You stare, and the face that looks back is at once shockingly new and deeply unsettling. It is the face of youth, smooth, unmarked, with the fresh, curious gaze of a child, but you feel no pride or relief. There is nothing triumphant in this transformation. Instead, you study the line of your jaw, the fullness of your cheeks, the softness of skin that does not belong to memory. You try to summon the person who once lived in this face, but the effort is like grasping water with open fingers. You whisper your own name, testing the sound. It seems both familiar and foreign. For a moment, you cannot recall what comes after it. No family, no history, just the echo of a self long faded. You try to smile at your reflection, but the gesture is stiff, a pantomime borrowed from someone else. The eyes in the glass, your eyes, do not quite meet your own. A sudden weariness washes over you, older than bones, older than the village itself. You touch your cheek, almost hoping for a wrinkle or a scar, some proof that you have survived years of weather and work and sorrow. But the face in the mirror tells only of beginning, not endurance. You wonder if this is the final joke the forest plays, to erase everything that made you until only a blank page remains. You leave the house and walk the lanes, noticing others in the same bewilderment. They peer into puddles, windows, the surfaces of spoons, each seeking confirmation of their own existence. The children are the least troubled, embracing their newness as a game, but the adults, those who still remember what it meant to be old, seem lost, drifting through the village like leaves carried on a restless wind. At the market, you pass faces that should be familiar, but there is a sameness to them now, a soft blur where character used to dwell. Even the village itself looks altered, sharper and cleaner, as if the houses have shed their stories along with the people. The fields glimmer with morning dew, the paths curve into the forest, and everything feels weightless, untethered. You try once more to fix yourself in place. You approach Agatha, hoping she will anchor you with a tale or a command. She sits in her chair, her hands folded, eyes fixed on a patch of sky beyond the rooftops. For the first time, she seems uncertain, her memory flickering in and out like candlelight. She greets you by name, a triumph perhaps, though you cannot be sure it is the right one. Look at you, she says softly, as young as the first day I met you, or was it the last? You sit beside her, grateful for the warmth of shared presence. Together, you try to remember stories, names, the old patterns of life before forgetting. Some fragments return, the taste of honey on bread, the sharpness of winter wind, the sound of laughter by the river. But these memories are detached from faces, from places, from meaning. They shimmer and fade, ungraspable as the mist that rises from the forest at dawn. For the rest of the day, you move through the village in a daze, seeking something to hold on to. You help with chores, carrying wood, sweeping floors, mending a tear in someone's coat, but each act feels provisional, as if performed by a guest. People thank you, sometimes by name, more often with a simple nod. There is no blame, no shame, only the silent acceptance of this new way of being. In the evening, you find yourself back before the mirror. The last light of day falls across your face, illuminating the smooth skin, the bright eyes, the absence of everything that used to make you you. You lean closer, searching for a sign, a freckle, a dimple, a memory etched in flesh. But the only mark is the one Agatha sewed into your sleeve. Your name, in careful stitches, a reminder that you once insisted on being remembered. You touch the embroidery with trembling fingers, feeling both gratitude and grief. You realize, with a pang, that you have become the sum of all that is forgotten. The rituals, the stories, the faces, all gone, leaving behind only this unearned, indifferent youth. You recall something the witch once said: the forest is not cruel, just thorough. You understand now. There is no malice in the erasure, only the relentless tide of renewal. The price of endless youth is endless forgetting, and the village has paid it willingly, week after week, in the hope that a little lightness would ease the weight of living. That night, you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house is quiet, the village silent, the woods a dark promise beyond the fields. You wonder if, in the morning, you will remember anything at all, not just names or stories, but the feeling of belonging to yourself. You whisper your name again and again until the word is meaningless and comforting all at once. As sleep overtakes you, you dream not of the past, but of possibility, a life unburdened by memory, a world where every face is new and every morning is a beginning. There is a sweetness in it, but also an ache, a longing for all you have lost, even as you are freed from the pain of remembering. When you wake, you know you will look in the mirror again. You will try one last time to find yourself there, and the forest will be waiting, patient as ever, for the next Friday. There is a phrase that drifts through the village these days, spoken with a shrug, sometimes with a sigh, sometimes with a bright, hopeful lilt. It is Friday again. The words have lost their edge, their warning. Once, Friday was the day you dreaded and watched for with uneasy anticipation. Now, it is simply the day that loops and loops, the drumbeat beneath all other days, a perpetual overture, an unfinished song. In this new world, every Friday is both the same and brand new. The village feels suspended in time, held in the gentle fist of the forest's will. The week blurs around it. There is the day before Friday, the day after Friday, but always, unmistakably, Friday. It is as if the sun itself grows tired of marking days, content to drift in and out of clouds, uncertain of its duties. You wake on Fridays with the strange certainty that you have never been older than you are that moment, and that you have never been younger either. You open your eyes to a village that resets itself, faces polished, bright, and unfamiliar, laughter that starts with an awkward edge and grows easier as the day wears on. The bakery always smells of new loaves. The children always chase each other in circles, and the air always carries a cool promise from the edge of the woods. On Fridays, no one asks what came before. No one searches for the missing days. It becomes easier, in a way, to let go. You greet your neighbors as if for the first time, inventing new greetings, new questions, new stories to share. Each encounter is fresh, the burden of history wiped away by the forest's invisible hand. There is no need for apology or explanation. Everyone is innocent. Everyone is new. There is a gentleness to the days now, born of not knowing. Small arguments dissolve before they can bloom. Old grudges, if they exist at all, last only as long as a glance. Children, delighted by this perpetual beginning, become wild and inventive, turning the whole village into a game, making up rules and tossing them aside as quickly as they are born. You walk the lanes and see your own reflection everywhere, in puddles, in windows, in the eyes of others. The sameness is comforting and disquieting all at once. You are not alone in your newness. The whole village shares your weightless, unanchored state. Sometimes, in the slow hours of the afternoon, you find yourself staring into the woods, feeling that old, faint tug, but it no longer frightens you. The forest is less a threat now than a certainty, like the rising of the moon or the changing of the wind. Agatha, too, grows quieter, her stories shorter, her corrections less frequent. She sits in the square each Friday, eyes on the sky, as if searching for a cloud that might remember her. The witch, when she appears at all, offers only small comforts, a sprig of mint, a pinch of salt, a knowing smile. Ulrich's ledgers, once dense with desperate notes and corrections, now fill with short, repeated entries. Friday, returned, younger, Sometimes he forgets even to write that. There are moments, always on Fridays, when you feel a glimmer of the old longing, a hint of loss. You hear a song in the tavern, and your heart aches for a memory just out of reach. You walk past a house and sense you once belonged there, or perhaps you simply passed by often enough to leave an echo in the stone. But the ache is gentle, dulled by repetition, quickly swept away by the next new face or the next small kindness. The rituals endure, though they are lighter now, more playful. The villagers gather each Friday at sunset, sharing food and laughter, telling stories that begin nowhere and end in a chorus of delighted confusion. Sometimes the stories are about the forest, but more often they are about nothing at all. A funny shaped potato, a chicken who crows at the moon, a child who swears she saw a fox dancing in the square. The laughter is as real as ever, and so is the relief that comes with it. Sometimes you catch yourself trying to remember what it was like before, before the Fridays, before forgetting became a comfort, before the village surrendered to the forest's rhythm. You think for a moment that you recall an old pain or a cherished joy, but the memory dissolves before it can form. You are left with a soft sadness and an even softer gratitude. If there are those who still vanish on Fridays, their absence is noted with a gentle acceptance, a blessing whispered over a cup of tea, a candle left burning in the window. No one mourns for long. The space they leave is quickly filled, as if the village itself has learned to heal and forget in the same breath. In time, even the language changes. Words for yesterday and tomorrow become rare, replaced by now and soon, and above all, again. Each Friday is eternal, folding itself around you and your neighbors, a perfect loop of beginning and ending. The woods are always waiting, their invitation gentle and irresistible. The village, for its part, has stopped resisting. As you lie in bed each Friday night, you find yourself neither dreading nor anticipating the next day. The old rituals, the diary, the calendar, the recitation of names have slipped away. In their place is a peace, strange but not unwelcome. You know that tomorrow will bring another Friday, another beginning, another forgetting, and as you drift into sleep, you imagine the village as it is now, young, light, unburdened, the stories of the past dissolved into the golden haze of perpetual Friday. You wonder, as you fade, whether the forest too remembers, whether it mourns or rejoices or simply waits, content with its bargain. In the silence that comes before dawn, you accept the cycle for what it is, a gentle, endless Friday, a story with no ending and no need for one. You sit on a low stone wall at the edge of the village, watching as dusk unspools across the fields, as if the day itself is exhaling for the last time. The world is hushed, soft edged, and shimmering in the kind of golden light that always feels like the beginning of something, though you cannot recall what. Someone, perhaps Agatha, perhaps a child, once told you that evenings like this are the perfect time for stories. So you try. There is, you feel, something important to say. You gather your thoughts like kindling, arranging the fragments of memory you can still reach. The taste of cool water from the well, the creak of a gate in the wind, the hush of the forest on a Friday night. You look at the person beside you, a newcomer, or maybe a neighbor, or maybe just a passing soul whose name you have lost. You want to tell them everything about the bargain with the woods, about the village that grows younger even as it vanishes, about love and fear and the sharp ache of forgetting. You begin, haltingly, once in this village, but the words feel thin, as if you are repeating something you only half heard. You search for the right tone, for the gravity of history, or the comfort of a fireside tale, but already the thread of the story is slipping away. The listener, patient and polite, nods encouragement, but their gaze is distant, drifting to the edge of the trees. The forest looms, silent and untroubled, the arbiter of countless bargains and uncounted losses. Perhaps it is listening, too. You try again. There was a time when people here remembered more, when each Friday was a warning, not a wish, when every face in the square was a page in a book we all could read. But the shape of the old stories dissolves, even as you speak them. Your listener tilts their head, curious, but you sense that they are already forgetting, or perhaps they never knew to begin with. You feel no bitterness in this. In truth, it is a relief, a soft release from the burden of telling, the endless effort of remembering. There is only the present, the hush of dusk, the murmur of distant laughter, the easy peace of forgetting. You share a smile with your companion, and in that moment, it is enough. Around you, the village settles into evening. The houses glow with candlelight. The air hums with gentle conversation, and in every face wears the calm openness of those who are untroubled by history. Children chase each other past the old well, inventing new games as quickly as they forget the rules. The baker hands out warm rolls to anyone who passes, and no one seems to mind if they are strangers or friends. Somewhere, Agatha dozes in her chair, her hands folded in her lap, the last of her stories curling away into sleep. The witch tends her herb garden in silence, plucking leaves by moonlight. Ulrich's ledger lies open, the final page blank except for a single word. Again. It is Friday. Perhaps it is always Friday now, and the forest waits, as patient and as hungry as ever. The cycle continues. The villagers drift to the edge of the woods, some with hope, some with resignation, most with nothing at all except the lightness of youth and the absence of memory. You watch the first stars appear above the treetops, and for a heartbeat, you feel the weight of all that has been lost: names, faces, stories, the rough thread of belonging. You ache for it, just a little, but the ache is soft, and soon it, too, is gone. Your companion turns to you, their voice gentle, asking if you will tell the story again. You smile and nod, but even as you open your mouth, the first words slip from your mind. You laugh, not unkindly, and together you watch the night deepen, content in the hush. If a stranger were to arrive in your village, they might notice something odd, how the people seem so young and so old at once, how they greet each other with warmth, but without certainty, how every Friday is both an ending and a beginning. But the stranger would soon forget, caught up in the gentle tide of forgetting, welcomed by the village and the woods alike. There will always be stories, you suppose, even if there is no one left to tell them or remember them. They drift in the air like pollen, settling where they may, sprouting for a day before vanishing. The forest knows them all, but keeps its silence, and so the village endures, suspended in the soft spell of Friday, new and ancient, bright and empty, full of echoes and laughter and the brief warmth of a story almost remembered. You are part of it now, as much as the well or the woods or the song that rises without words at twilight. One last time, you try to recall what it was you meant to say. The words hover on your tongue, then drift away like mist. It does not matter. The story is over, or perhaps it is just beginning. No one will remember, and that is its own kind of peace. As the first breath of night settles over the village, you let yourself forget.